And welcome back, rugby fans, to Rugby 411. As always, I am your host. My name is Joshua Shibata, and I'm really excited for this video. Again, apologies for the lateness. I've been traveling this week, and I'm, especially when it comes to these power rankings, I want to base these off of every game and watching every game. So it took a while to watch all 6 games. It's something that I have a lot of fun doing. I told you I'm a huge rugby fan. I've seen every MLR game from 2021. I've seen every MLR game of 2020. Granted, that was really easy because during COVID, what else could you do? And truncated season 2, so it was really short. But I really want to make these power rankings as legit as possible. And a little bit of a background. So full credit goes to a wonderful YouTuber named 2 Cents Rugby. If you really want to know more, if you're a big fan of international rugby, he talks about it all. He is a huge, passionate rugby fan, and he does a lot of power rankings of what he's observed, and that's exactly where I got the idea from. So I'm not stealing anything. This setup with the blackboard and the magnets, exactly the same way that he does it. I'm not gonna hide it. I'm giving full credit to him. I'm gonna put his website down in the comments below, description of this video below. Again, full credit goes to him. He's a great follow, especially if you really want to know more or you're into international rugby. He covers it all. He covers United Rugby Championship. He covers Super Rugby. He covers Premiership, Six Nations, which is going on right now. He covers it all. He's a great follow, very knowledgeable of the sport. So all credit to him. Now, so that being said, these power rankings, again, are not based off of win-loss records. Now, a win is important, and a loss is important too. It does affect your ranking in the power rankings, but it's not about who's on top of the rankings with win-loss records or points. It's based purely on performance on the pitch. It's also going to be based on recent performances. You know, if you start hot with a 5-game win streak and start losing a couple games, you're not going to be number one, even though you might have more wins than everybody else. You're probably going to drop down because it's all based on what you are currently doing. Also, your opponents, you know, again, a win over a strong opponent at the beginning of the season, like the Giltinis, might mean more now, but maybe, knock on wood, maybe the Giltinis weren't the championship team that we all, including myself, thought they were. And so then that win doesn't mean nearly as much near the end of the season. So it takes into a lot of things into a factor, and it's not purely based off of win-loss record. And again, I watch every game because I really want to make sure I evaluate these games correctly and these teams correctly, not just based off of what I see on the scoreboard. So it takes time. Mostly, I will probably get these done by Tuesday. It's just, again, travel. It's now, and I definitely wanted to get this done quickly because I know later tonight, I'm filming this right now at 4. Later tonight at 7:30 Pacific Standard Time, there is the first game of Week 2, which is going to be between, if I remember correctly, Seattle and Utah. I want to make sure I get this all done so people know what to think about, what I think about Week 1, how to evaluate Week 2, and then a video later after I do this is going to go over my pickups and our Super Brew pool, which again, thank you guys for participating in that. It's very fun, very exciting. The turnout was better than I thought because it was more than just one, so I'm really happy about that. But I'll go more into that in the next video. So let's get started here. Major League Rugby Power Rankings for week number 1. Again, just, you know, obviously there's only 12 teams in this ranking, even though there's 13 teams in the league, only because Rugby United New York did not play in week 1. Therefore, they will not be ranked at all. So they are sitting out for just this ranking. Okay. So let's begin. Obviously, number 12 spot, we're going to go from 12 to 1. Has to go to the new kids on the block, the Dallas Jackals. You know, I'll be honest with you. Their loss against a very strong team in the Austin Gilgronis, 43-7. I was actually very impressed with Dallas. They were not as bad as I thought they would be. But it's very obvious, not a lot of cohesion. Brand new team, first time playing in the MLR. They didn't have a whole lot of preseason. A lot of teams didn't have a whole lot of preseason. We'll talk about that later when it comes to Utah. But you know what? They had a lot of potential. They had a lot of scoring opportunities. They just couldn't execute. And I think that's going to be a running factor throughout the season, is that they just don't have the talent right now like the other teams. But again, it's the first year. Don't know exactly how they are operated, how much money they might have compared to other teams. So right now they're literally just building, while we have other teams that are years ahead of them. It's going to be a struggle. But I feel they might give a lot of teams some pretty stiff competition. I think the question is going to be, how long can they sustain this before the team kind of starts to pack it up and realize what they are? And if that starts to happen, then definitely they're going to kind of be a team that's going to be a pushover. Hopefully that doesn't happen. We'll see. But, yeah, I mean, the Dallas Jackals, number 12. New kids on the block, starting out kind of rough. Okay, number 11. The Toronto Arrows. Now, this is the most recent game I was able to watch, because I go in order. So they were the last game to play, and I just finished watching them, literally. Playing against Seattle, in Seattle. It wasn't a bad game. It was a very defensive game. A lot of mistakes. But again, not a lot of preseason for Toronto. But there are a lot of scoring opportunities that they had, and unfortunately a lot of drop balls, a lot of miscommunication amongst the backs. Definitely rusty. And it's game one. So that's something that we all kind of will see happen. Seattle definitely had a strong defense. We'll go a little bit more into details about the rebuilding of the seawall for Seattle when I rank them. But only scoring 8 points. Again, it's all about performance on the pitch. Definitely one of the weaker performances, and they are number 11. Number 10, NOLA Gold. Now, again, preseason I wasn't expecting too much from them. Again, not actually kind of surprised that they were much better than what I expected. They've lost a lot of weapons. They've lost a lot of firepower. Yeah, they struggled in their loss against. They lost against the Free Jacks. Sorry about that. It took a while. Against the Free Jacks. But it wasn't a huge loss. 24-13, respectable. But definitely you can see the lack of firepower, the lack of talent. Carl Myers got hurt during the game, and that is going to be something we're definitely going to have to monitor, because he's very, very pivotal to their offense and their kicking game. Damian Stevens came in to relieve Myers of kicking duty and missed both of his conversions. So, without a good kicker, and we'll talk about that with the Houston Sabercats when we rank them, it's very pivotal. So right now, New Orleans, number 10, like I said in the preseason, I think they're really, really going to struggle this year. And, they might actually fall further, depending on how Toronto and how Dallas and how the rest of the teams act. It's just week 1, too. I got to remember that. All right, number 9. And this one's going to hurt a lot, but your reigning, defending MLR champions, the LA Giltinis. As much of a fan as I am of them, and as much as I do love them, I'm going to be very critical of them as well. And their game against the Houston Sabercats, a loss of 11-21, was really, really bad. They were outplayed on almost all aspects of the game except for the defense. And that's truly what kind of saves them from going below New Orleans in this ranking. There was a moment when LA was 2 men down, had 2 yellow cards, and yet they were able to prevent Houston from scoring any points at all. Now, granted, we'll go into this when we talk about Houston. Houston did decide not to kick 4 points, and that means it could have been a much more lopsided game. Instead, they tried to go for tries, and LA's defense, which was very, very good last year, was amazing in this game. It's just the other things just didn't produce. Their lineouts, which they usually are very good at, was horrible. Their scrum, they were just completely outpowered by Houston's scrum. It was ridiculous. And just that offensive firepower they didn't have. You know, and what's kind of scary is that this is still pretty much the same team that won that MLR championship. Now, there is talk about Houston completely revamping, new coaching staff, coaching staff that's based purely in South Africa, a lot of with South African minds, a South African roster. There's a lot of tongue-in-cheek remarks that it was South Africans outplaying Australians, which is what the Giltinis are pretty much composed of, and their coaching staff is an Aussie base. But it was not a good performance by LA. Their saving grace was definitely their defense, but for a team that averaged over 40 points per game last year to only be stuck at 11 in game 1, not very good. Obviously, as a Giltinis fan, hoping for the best, but right now, man, very shocking to see them number 9 to start out at week 1. All right, moving on. Number 8, Old Glory DC. This was probably the fun game for me. 55-22 loss to Rugby ATL. The first 50 minutes, Old Glory gave ATL a hell of a fight. I mean, the first 50 minutes was back and forth, scoring here and there. And sadly, just Old Glory ran out of steam. After 50 minutes, they just got overpowered by the offensive juggernaut that is ATL. So, we'll see how Old Glory does against maybe some of the lesser teams. But obviously, you have an ATL, you have a Rooney, you have the Free Jacks. Old Glory it's looking right now that the Eastern Conference might be stronger than the Western Conference. Old Glory definitely needs to stick up their game or get some more firepower if they want to compete with those teams and make it to the playoffs this year. Moving on to number 7, Utah Warriors. Another really fun game, though it got fun pretty much at the very last second. 29-31 loss. And to be honest, the game was not that close until literally the last couple of minutes. Utah, again, we talked about having no preseason or a lack of preseason. Utah had no preseason at all, and they looked really, really rusty. San Diego did a very good job of limiting Utah's playmakers. Mika Kruse and Mikey Teo did absolutely nothing in that game except for try by Mikey. It wasn't until the very end that Mika had a really good run to set up a try that got them really close to the score. But again, it wasn't until the very last minute that Utah was able to score 2 tries within the last 3 minutes of the game. They even went 6 minutes overtime to get them not only a bonus point for scoring 4 tries, but also to get them a losing bonus point of getting the score within 7. They only lost by 3. So, very good for Utah, especially in a league where points do matter. So having 2 points is definitely better than having 0 for a loss. So Utah really redeemed themselves at the very end. And I feel, again, week 1, Utah had no prep. So I think they just needed a little bit of time to kind of gel a little bit more. They'll be a dangerous team. They'll definitely be a dangerous team. I predicted them to win. So it's a little shocking that they lost, but it's also they definitely were rusty going into the game. Number 6, Seattle Seawolves. So again, the most recent game that I just saw, Seattle looked good. Definitely better than last season. They look like the 2-time MLR champions. They rebuilt that seawall, this defense, that defense that really stifled Toronto, eliminating them to just 8 points. Now, the only issue with Seattle right now is, again, they haven't really upgraded their team compared to everybody else, like ATL, Rooney, Houston now. So they're going to rely a lot on their defense. Obviously, also AJ Alatimu, who I've mentioned before, his kicking game, he scored, I believe, 3 kicks, got a little knocked up. He's going to be very pivotal in on their team, so they need to keep him healthy. But Seattle looking a little bit more like the team that they once were. Granted, I still have my reservations about Toronto. So right now, kind of in the middle. They are the lowest ranked team of winners. They have a big task against Utah. We'll go over that in the next video as I preview Week 2 games because Utah's coming up to Seattle. What does benefit Seattle is playing in Starfire Stadium where they have that, if you want to call it the 16th man on the field, where their fans just are very loud, very supportive of the team. So that might play into their favor. But Seattle, good win for them. Respectable. Number 5, Houston Sabercats, who shocked everybody in Week 1 by beating the LA Giltinis. For what they did was really good, but there were a lot of things to also pick at with Houston. As I mentioned before, there was a moment where LA were 2 men down and Houston could not score at all. That's very, very concerning if you're a Houston fan. Also concerning, the fact that they didn't try to kick at all. And they used to have Sam Windsor on their team. Sam Windsor was their fly half who did all the kicking. Most points scored in last year's season and all time for MLR. So the loss of Sam Windsor obviously hurts. What will Houston do to compensate for that? We don't know. Also, what kind of hurts for Houston is it's very apparent that they have a lack of depth on their bench. During the game with LA, even though it was still very close, they actually, they weren't ahead of the game until the very end. LA really was ahead, just barely. But Houston didn't do anything to overcome that, and yet still, they didn't go to their bench at all. I think they only had 1 or 2 subs in. So, kind of says a lot about the depth of their bench. We'll see if that plays into a factor as the season progresses. It is a very long season of 16 weeks. So we'll see. Right now, Houston's kind of sitting here, but I'm still going to sit by my ideas of what they were at the preseason. And, not hating on Houston because they just beat my team. I still can see them slide a little bit as the season progresses. But we'll see. We'll see. Number 4. Now we're going into the top 4. Coming into Week 2. San Diego Legion, number 4. They looked really good. Actually, I'm sorry. When the game first started, both Utah and San Diego looked real bad. A lot of rust coming into this game. But then all of a sudden, San Diego started charging ahead. And they were up ahead, 31-15 near the end of the game. And pretty much it looked like the game was put away. And then all of a sudden, they just stopped playing. And Utah, like I said, scored 2 tries within the last couple of minutes. Almost kind of really easy tries. So don't know if San Diego just kind of had a brain fart at the end. But, not a great way to end the game. But a win is still a win. And that's really, as you see, you have all the winners on top of the losers. Because a win does matter. No matter how ugly, a win is still a win. But San Diego gets number 4 for here. Number 3, the New England Free Jacks. So, New England, it was a good win. Not a super impressive win over New Orleans, but what really helps them with their 24-13 win over New Orleans is the fact that it was a win at New Orleans. So, a win for away. And again, those things do matter. The home team, even in rugby, has an advantage. Going over the stats, the home team does have more of an advantage than the away team. So any kind of win from an away team is still pretty impressive. It means something. So New England Free Jacks gets that number 3 spot. Now, top 2 teams. And to be honest, these were the 2 teams that look the most dangerous now going into Week 2. Number 2, the Austin Gilgronis. And the only reason why they're number 2, I feel, even though they have a 43-7 win over the Jackals, it really felt like Austin pulled their foot off of the gas near the end. I feel this score could have been a lot higher for Austin, but it just felt like they stopped trying after 50 minutes. The last 30 minutes was kind of just, they were just playing. I didn't really keep track if it was a lot of their bench players playing and just giving them time, so you didn't have the same offensive firepower. But at least for the first 50 minutes, they looked really great. You know, Mark O'Keefe, new acquisition from Atlanta, paid dividends. He was all over the place. Austin looks good. Austin looks very dangerous. Just not as dangerous as the number one team going into week number 2, Rugby ATL. Very, very impressive. You know, I talked about losing Coach Lawrence, the loss of Jeremy Misilega, and just a lot of turmoil going into the season, and it looked like Rugby ATL didn't care. It looked like it was just work as usual. So they proved me wrong with that, or at least for right now. They looked very, very impressive in their win over Old Glory, 55-22. I had to give a big shout out to their fly half, Joaquin de la Vega Medina, a Argentinian under-20s star, first year in MLR. Was super, super impressive. 8 for 8 in his conversion and penalty kicks. No one kicked as much as him or made as many as him. A perfect 8 for 8. He also scored a try, 23 points. He sits on top of the point table for MLR after week number 1. Really, really impressive stuff from Rugby ATL. Again, the game against Old Glory was a slugfest for the first 50 seconds, and then just ATL said, we are gone. We are going to score as much as we can. And again, that was the difference between them and Austin, is that ATL never let their foot off the gas. Austin let their foot off the gas when they knew that the game was pretty much theirs. These two will face off against each other in week number 5 with, I believe, Austin visiting ATL, so that's going to be a fun game to watch. And yeah, that's week number 1 power rankings. So you have ATL, Austin, Free Jacks, Legion, Houston, Seattle, Utah, Old Glory, LA, New Orleans, Toronto, and the Jackals. And remember, Rooney did not play, so they are not ranked for right now. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how much this changes over time. And, you know, and again, as we play on, remember, it's all about the performance on the pitch. It's all about your recent wins, not what you did from the start. So wins here in this week 1 may not mean anything by the time we get to week 12, 13, 14 at the end of the season. But it'll be interesting to see who stays up here, who stays down here, and who switches in between. So there you go. Thank you again for joining me on this video, and hope you guys had as much fun as I did.